So today what we are going to do is we're going to get to share a little bit about how our hands-on activity went when you guys made either the baked apples or the fruit two ways, or maybe you did both. We're going to talk now. We're going to shift away from fruit and start talking about vegetables in general. And then we're going to learn about something called composting. First question, which recipe did you guys make, or did anyone make both? Remember the options. It was either the fruit two ways or the baked apples. Okay, so 30 says, I made the baked apples. Okay. Fruit two ways. All right. Baked apples. Fruit two ways. How funny. We're going to go back and forth.
We're even.
Yeah, we are. We're evenly split so far. Baked apples. Fruit two ways. We're keeping, we're fruit two ways. Ooh, now the tide is shifting. Let's see. Did anyone, oh, that's okay. If you forgot, you can still do it. You can do it when, you could do it after this class if you want to, if you have the ingredients. All right, so next question, was there anything that surprised you about the recipes, either with the flavor or what it was like to make them? They were surprisingly good. Oh, I love to hear that. So someone said they were really tasty. That's good.
Awesome.
Fruit two ways was amazing. So what about those flavor combinations did you like or not like?
Five said, I didn't like chili powder with pineapple because it was gross. And my mom was confused why we had to eat pineapple with chili powder. Yeah, so okay, you learned you didn't like chili powder on pineapple. Did you like chili powder on any other fruit? The whole point of it was kind of to see maybe you would be surprised that you liked it, but I guess you didn't like it, but you still learned something from that. Did you try the chili powder on another kind of fruit or just the pineapple? Just tried the one fruit. That's okay. Did you like it with lime or lemon juice? Did you do that part of the activity too? Loved with lime. Awesome. Have you had fruit with lime on it before, or was that a new experience for you? I haven't. Okay. Awesome. Okay, so we had a win and we had a lose, right?
13 said that they tried the apple lime and cinnamon powder, tasted like apple pie. Oh, how cool. What a new discovery. I love that. And who would have thought, right? Somehow that those combinations taste like apple pie. Yeah, I'm seeing some people getting some good ideas for future combinations.
Wow.
Ooh, someone also said they like chili powder and banana. That sounds very interesting. Did any of the flavors remind you of something you've had before? So 13 saying the apple, lime, and cinnamon tasted like apple pie. But was there any combination that was like familiar somehow to a food you've had before? Oh, someone says didn't remind me of anything. It was a new taste. So would any of you guys ever try making these things again?
Someone said, I don't know.
Don't know. Maybe someone said me, they would. Okay. So the verdict is out. Maybe. I don't know. So we're kind of mixed. We're not sure. That's totally fine. I will probably. Okay. So maybe we discovered something new. And one of the things that I think is so cool about some of those recipes is how easy they are. And it's kind of like a fun like snack or dessert they don't take a lot of effort. And especially I think the baked apples, like a lot of people generally have some of those ingredients around, like they're kind of common ingredients. So it's kind of like a new snack or dessert that's pretty easy to make. And someone said they tried brown sugar on apples and it blew your mind? Like it was like a totally unexpected flavor? Yeah, super cool. So I love to hear how you guys are playing with flavors, finding things you do and don't like. That's the whole point of that exercise, right? In addition to learning a new recipe, it's to find the flavors you do and don't like. So next topic, what is this? You guys can chat in or you can unmute yourself and share. What's this? Tomatoes, exactly. And I found a little funny gif of tomatoes. So can you guys think of some words to describe tomatoes? Let's see. Red, juicy, sweet sometimes.
Soft.
I don't like vegetables, so I don't know what it tastes like. Okay, well, that's totally fine. So if you don't know what it tastes like, maybe just from when you're observing, what do you see that are some describing words? Red and juicy, delicious. Those are some really good ones. All right. Ooh, red and green. Yes, exactly. They're actually technically fruits. They're small. Yep. Yeah, you guys have some good ones. It makes sauce for pizza. Yes, exactly. Tomatoes are in so many foods. All right, what is this? Whoa, someone even knows that they're part of the nightshade family. You guys are
Wow.
geniuses. So yes, these are Cucumbers. And here's my silly little, I think it's a mouse or a gerbil cucumber. I thought
So
I'd
cute.
find something silly. What are some words you guys can think of to describe this vegetable besides a hamster? Green, hard, yeah, good. Refreshing, great word. Great word, 32. Long, yep, they are. Water, yeah, there's a lot of water in cucumbers. Good one. It's crunchy. Fabulous, 5. It becomes a pickle. Yes, cucumbers are what we turn into pickles. Seeds, lots of seeds in the center. Exactly. Crunchy. Ooh, someone said crunchy. That's the word that I think of. Juicy is another great one. Awesome. My mom makes pickles. Oh my gosh, that's such a fun summer pastime is turning your cucumbers into pickles. How do these vegetables grow and what season do they grow in? Ooh, 13 is growing cucumbers in their garden. So cool. So they grow in the ground. Yep, definitely. They grow in the garden, they grow in the ground. They need water. Yes. Spring, we're close. Not quite spring. What's the season right afterwards? Oh, they sprout into little seedlings. Very good. Summer. Yeah, so cucumbers grow this time of year. They grow in the hot, warm summer. Oh, 24 says they're growing cucumbers and tomatoes. Oh, so spoiler alert, some of these next pictures are going to look really familiar to you, 24, okay? We're going to look at how cucumbers grow and all the different stages, okay? So they start as seeds. And this is actually what cucumber seeds look like. So, you know, when you look at the inside of a cucumber, and you're seeing the little seeds, if you were to dissect those, if you were to pull them out, this is exactly what they would look like after you kind of dry them out, okay? So after we plant our seed, what starts to grow? What is it called? The next stage. A seedling or a sprout. You guys are exactly right. So here is what a cucumber seedling or sprout looks like. So it has these kind of tall stems and these big fat round leaves around the outside. And then the center has kind of this really interesting little kind of curved pointed leaf. They're really cool and interesting looking. So 5 is saying we grow tomatoes from the tomato seeds from Costco and it works. Amazing. And I think someone else had said that they're growing, 50 said they're growing tomatoes and my cousin is growing cucumbers. You guys are all such gardeners. I love it. All right, so after the cucumber plant starts to grow a little more, it grows into what? What is this right here? The plant, right? Yeah, I see the plant. What are some other words you can think of to describe? Someone says they're growing tomatoes too. Oh my gosh, so many people growing tomatoes in their garden. So this right here is the big plant. It's kind of a bush. It has a whole bunch of really big leaves. Vines. Yes, vine is another word. The vine is part of the plant, exactly. Okay, and so what's cool and similar to the pumpkins and the melons we looked at, you get these little tiny yellow flowers. And so if I'm telling you that it's similar to the pumpkins and the melons, what do you think is going to happen with that little flower? What's the next stage? And it involves an insect that helps out. Yes, bees and pollination. Amazing. Yes. So the bees come in and they are looking for nectar. So they travel into this little yellow flower that's growing on the cucumber. And you can see them on this plant over here. And so then they go in looking for nectar. They get pollen covered on their body and then they fly to another flower. And when they go into that, yeah, and butterflies pollinate too, exactly. So it's not just bees, it can be butterflies, bees, and even hummingbirds actually. When they put their heads into the next flower, some of the pollen from that first flower rubs off. And when the pollen gets mixed between flowers, that is how we turn flowers into new fruits and vegetables. That process, pollination, is what creates new vegetables. And so, what do you guys think the last stage is going to be in this diagram? The cucumber. Yes, exactly. All right, ready? Ready, set, boom. This is a plant that has tons of cucumbers growing from it. And some people, when they grow their cucumbers, they might not have a ton of space to grow like out in a garden. So they sometimes will grow them up and down. It's called vertical growing. And so that's why these cucumbers are hanging off of the plant. They're hanging vertically because they maybe were like growing up a fence or up some kind of it's sometimes called a trellis. So this is what it looks like when the cucumber plant grows. The seed to the little sprout, this big plant with the little flowers that get pollinated into a big cucumber. So you guys want to see the same process for the tomatoes? Similar. What do we think? How do we think it all starts for the tomatoes? What do we start with? Seeds! Yep. So they look really different than cucumber seeds. They're much smaller and they are super lightweight. They're almost like paper. Like if you blew on them, they would totally scatter. They weigh almost nothing. And these are the same the seeds that come out of a tomato plant. And then they grow into what's the word? Yep, the sprout. Exactly. They grow into the sprout and they look really different than our cucumber sprout. And then next, yep, we get our big tomato bush, our big plant like this. And these tiny little seeds grow into these huge tomato plants.
I thought that the seeds for the tomato kind of look like quinoa.
Like quinoa. Oh my gosh. Yeah, you're right. They totally do. Good observation. All right, so similar to the cucumber, then we get these little flowers. They look kind of different, but what's gonna, yep, pollination. Someone chatted in. We're gonna get pollination of those little yellow flowers from the bees, hummingbirds, and butterflies. And then we got those big, beautiful red tomatoes. Oh, and people are saying that a squirrel got into your melon plants. Yeah, the squirrels love seeds. So someone said they brought it inside. That's actually a good idea. If anyone's having like animals that are trying to get into their seeds, if you bring your plant inside on a windowsill just until it's like a baby seedling, then the animals aren't really like that obsessed with the seeds anymore, and you can probably bring it back outside. After we wash, prepare, and eat our food, what happens if you have leftover food, like food waste? What can you do with it after you have leftover food? Guys, okay, we could put it in the soil. Yeah. There's kind of a couple steps before. So what happens when we have leftover food? What can we do with it? We could compost to turn it into soil. Yeah, and we're going to talk a lot about composting soon. What do you guys do sometimes though if you have leftover food? Besides just composting, what are some of the other things we do with it? Yeah, lots of people are saying they compost it, which is awesome. Do you guys ever like package up your leftovers and eat it? Yeah, use it another time. Exactly. That's what I was just going to ask. Do people ever have leftovers, right? That you just eat for another meal, right? Yeah, so some people might have leftovers. And sometimes you might just throw your leftover, the food scraps in the trash, right? So there's lots of ways that we end up getting rid of anything that we have left over. But what we're going to talk about today is what is composting? For those of you who were saying that they know about that, do you want to chat in or unmute yourself and share?
5 said the worms eat it, but then something gross happens.
That is true. That is true. The worms are definitely involved, and the process can be a little gross, but it's a super cool process. We put our compost bins, which is a coffee bin, and we put it in our compost bin and the worms eat it. Yes, exactly. That's super great. So composting, the way I think about it, is it's how nature recycles plant material and food waste to actually make new soil. So it's kind of like nature's way of recycling. So we often recycle like, plastic bins or, soda cans or newspaper, that kind of thing. But those aren't made from, from natural materials. Those things are made from, from man-made materials. So the plants can't really break down like plastic bins or that kind of thing. But composting is the way that the natural world, that nature actually breaks down the stuff that once came from nature, that once came from plants. And it's kind of the way that it kind of completes the full cycle of how things start. We start with a seed, we have a sprout, we have a big plant, we have fruits and vegetables, and then eventually that stuff has to go back into the earth to make new soil because we have to start that whole cycle back over. Composting is the last step after we're done that turns our food back into soil to kind of start everything back over. But what's interesting is it's actually also the first step in the process of like how seeds and food get to our plate. And so I kind of have a thinking question for you guys. We'll see if we can work our way through. Why do you think composting is not only the last, but also the first step in the process of how we get food onto our plates? Ooh, 31 said it's a cycle. Yes, you guys, that's perfect. It's a cycle. And so composting is kind of the way that we complete the cycle. It's the way that we turn anything that's left over, any leftover food, back into soil because it makes the new soil, and all of our seeds need soil in order to grow. And 5, you're completely right. Compost is the same thing as dirt. It's the same thing that all of our plants grow from. And by having new soil that we made from compost, that's how we can grow new plants. You guys are completely right. So I'm actually going to now explain the hands-on activity that you guys are going to do before Monday. And it's going to be, if you don't have one yet, to start your own compost at home. And can I just see by either chatting in or a raise of hands, how many of you guys already have a compost at home?
Bree does. Lots of people.
Okay, so for those of you who do, this is all going to be like, you guys totally know this already. But if you don't, I'm going to show you how. And even if you already do have a compost, maybe the way that we show you is new and you might have now 2 or something like that. How do we compost? The very first step, to find a bin or a bucket or something. So you could have like a 5-gallon bin, like here on the left, this green one. You can use an old coffee bin to just poke holes in the lid. If you want a bigger one, you can get one of these like storage bins that sometimes you put clothes in. And then if your compost is going to live outside, you can even get really creative and like pile a bunch of tires on top of each other. If you have old tires or something like that, that can even be your compost bin. And so 5 is saying reuse the Folgers and Kirkland yogurt containers to bring it to the bin itself outside. That's awesome. So some people even have like one that they keep in their kitchen for, each day, and then they transport that outside to a larger bin. And I think 5 also said they have a fun spinning compost bin. I've seen those. Those are so cool. And then the second thing is you got to start to learn the do's and don'ts of composting. And by that, I mean, only some things can go in our compost. It's not like the trash or recycling bin where we can just put anything in. Some things work in the compost and some don't. For those of you who already know some about composting, maybe you could share with some of our friends who are learning this for the first time, why do we have only certain things that we can compost? Why do we kind of have to know the rules of composting? What do you think? Oh, 32. Bingo. I love the way you phrase that. There are rules to what you can and can't put in the compost because there are some things that nature can't break down. Exactly. So we have little insects kind of help us break down the compost, and that's like the worms and maybe flies or ants. Different insects kind of help us break down the compost. They eat it and they help turn it into soil. And those things, like worms, for example, they can't eat plastic containers and they can't eat certain foods. So we kind of have what does and doesn't go in the compost. And 20, you're so right. Also, your compost will start to smell and attract animals that you don't want around if you put certain things in the compost. Yeah. Oh, so people are starting to list the things. Yeah, banana peels and eggshells are things you can compost. Yep. Apples. Yep. Bread scraps, not used papers, but vegetable and fruit parts that you can't eat. Yes, 5, exactly. Those are the things we can compost. So one thing you want to keep in mind when you're composting is you want to keep it balanced, and it's like fractions. Have you guys learned some about fractions in school? Okay, so if you haven't learned about fractions, no big deal at all. But if you have, that's one way to start thinking about this, okay? We want to have half of our compost be what we call the browns and half be what we call the greens. The browns are things that are kind of crunchy and dried out, and they aren't colorful anymore. So it's like dried leaves or straw or newspaper or cardboard or twigs. So anything that is dried out, it's brown, and it's crunchy that you could find out in nature. Can someone think of something, one of these things from the browns that's in their house or around their house that they might have, and chat it in if you can think, or unmute yourself and say one of these things that you could find around your house that's a brown?
Saw 30 had her hand up.
Oh, 30, do you want to share, or do you want to share, unmute and share, or type it in? So I'm seeing people are saying cardboard, boxes. So 23 said brown sugar. And I know that that one is brown, and that's great thinking. But brown sugar, I don't actually think would be great in our compost. It would be probably a little too sweet, and it might attract some animals. But very good thinking because it is brown. But maybe something from this list. But good thinking. So someone said lots of newspaper, lots of pine needles, cardboard boxes. Those are all browns that could go in your compost. So you want to make sure that about half of the things that you're putting in, right? Every time you're adding something, it can almost be like counting. And you want half of the things that you put in to be something from the brown category, like straw, newspaper, pine needles, cardboard. Very good. And then the other half is something that you want to be from the green category, which is all of our things that once came from nature that still have color to them. They're usually a little bit wetter and they still have color to them. So like fruit and vegetable scraps. So like if you are eating an apple and we usually don't eat the core would be a green fruit scrap that could go in the compost. Can someone chat in or unmute and share something else from the green category that you can think of? Banana peel, exactly. That's a good one. Anything else? What can you think of a fruit or, yeah, grass, exactly. As long as you don't put any chemicals on your grass, like if you don't spray it with chemicals, you can totally put grass in there. Weeds, yeah. So that's kind of one of the complicated ones. Weeds, although they are green, you try to avoid putting in your compost because what might happen is the new soil that gets made from compost will have a lot of weeds in it, which is not ideal. So we actually say to not put weeds in the compost. So things like banana peels, apple cores, grass, those are all great greens to keep in mind. So now I just want to show you guys a chart of the things we don't want to put in the compost, okay? And you guys have already said some of them, but here are some things we don't want to put in. We don't want to we can use egg shells in the compost. That's actually really healthy for the worms that eat the compost. But the inside of the egg, like the yolk, that we don't want to put in the compost because that's something that will attract animals. Not so good. Anything that came from an animal, so like their litter or their waste or meat scraps or bones or fish or like dairy products, none of that is good in a compost for two reasons. The first, worms and like flies and ants and stuff that help us break down our compost, they can't really eat things like meat and bones and fish and yogurt and cheese. It hurts their stomachs, it might hurt them, they could get sick. So the worms can't really eat it. And also, someone I think earlier had said it attracts animals like maybe deer or squirrels or rabbits into your compost. And we just don't really want the, or raccoons, depending on how, where you live. We just don't really want those kind of things in your garden and in your compost, right? So these are the things we try to avoid putting in there if we can. So step one is we find our bin or our bucket, right? Whatever it is you're going to use. And then step two is we remember what can and can't go in the compost. And then step three is you're going to actually add those items to your compost bin. And over the course of the next few weeks in class, you're either going to, if it's outside, you might use like a shovel or a pitchfork to turn it. Or if it's in like one of those coffee containers, you can actually just shake it and that'll mix it around. And it's so important that we mix our compost because that's what helps give our worms some air because they need to breathe just like we do. And when you shake it or you turn it, that brings air into the compost so that all those little critters that are helping us break it down are able to breathe. Okay, so once a week, you want to either shake or turn your compost around. And then the last step is in about minimum of 2 months, maximum of about 4 months, depending on how big your compost is, it is actually going to break down. It's going to look like a bunch of random vegetables and fruits, and it's going to turn into, in a few months, something that looks just like soil. And you'll be able to add that into your garden to make your soil and your plants that much healthier. All right. Oh, so people are asking, how do we get worms? And I saw 5 said maybe we buy them or they come to us. 5, you are exactly right. The worms will find their way into that compost because it is such a delicious source of food for them. you probably won't have worms in your little tiny like kitchen compost, but as soon as you start bringing them outside, the worms are going to find their way in because they're like, oh my gosh, this is the yummiest food source ever. It's so tasty. These humans know exactly what I like to eat. And they're going to come in and you're going to start to see in a few weeks, if you have an outside compost container, you're going to start to see worms in it. And you're going to be like, oh my gosh, that crazy teacher was right. The worms came. We made a compost and the worms came. So what you guys are going to do for this hands-on activity at home is you're going to watch the videos. We're going to show you guys some videos about how to make your own compost container. You're going to complete the activity, and then you are going to take a picture or video and put it up on Class Dojo so Miss Harrison and I can see. And someone said, can we blend the fruit scraps? Like in a blender? Is that what you mean, 31? Like blend it in a blender? Yeah, you can totally do that if you want to. That will help. It'll like make the pieces even smaller, and then the worms will eat it even faster because they'll have to do less chewing, so to speak. And those of you who said you already have a compost, that is totally fine. Maybe just take a picture and upload a picture of your existing compost. Miss Harrison and I would love to see your at-home composts that you already have. But if you don't have one yet at home, then please do start your own little compost in one of those, type of bins that we'll describe in the videos, okay? All right, so in our last couple minutes of class, we're gonna do an exit ticket. I think you guys are gonna like it, okay? So step one, take a second and go find a piece of paper and something to write with. It can be a pencil or a marker or a crayon. Just we'll take a quick little pause and everyone get a pencil or something to write with and a piece of paper, okay? What we're gonna do, have you guys ever made a table before, maybe in school? Some of you, yeah? Okay, so make a table. It's gonna have it's gonna look just like this on the screen. 2 columns, one that says the word can and one that says the word can't. So it'll have the word can and can't and then 5 spaces afterwards, okay? All right. Oh, so 5, we actually don't know your guys' names. And I know this is like kind of one of the weird things about our class, but we are not allowed to know your names because this class is part of a research project, which is kind of like a science experiment. And part of the research project is that we're allowed to see your faces, we're allowed to get to know you, but we just can't know your names, which I know is kind of weird and kind of sad because I would love to know all of your names. Maybe after the class is done sometime in the future, we'll have a reunion and we'll get to know your names. But good question. Okay. So on the next slide, I'm going to show you guys 10 items and I want you to sort them in your little table to whether they can or can't be composted, okay? And when we're done, then we're gonna hold up our charts and see how we did. So, you guys ready? First item, meat. Can meat be composted? Into the yes or the no category. You can write it into your column. Next one, rocks. Can rocks be composted or not? You can write the word rocks into either the yes, the can, or the can't category. All right, next one, bread. Can bread be composted? You can type it into the yes or no. Can apples be composted? Next, can milk be composted? What about eggshells? Can eggshells be composted? I think we have 3 more. Cheese. Can cheese be composted? All right. Coffee grounds. Can coffee grounds be composted? This one's a little tricky. All right, and I think we have our last one. Let me do a count real quick. Nope, 2 more. Leaves. Can leaves be composted? All right, last one, carrots. What about carrots? Can carrots be composted? All right, so that is the end of our item list. The answers are, if the picture is on a green background, then it can be composted. So the apples, carrots, leaves, bread, coffee grounds, and eggshells are all on green. They can be composted. And the ones that are on red, so the milk, rocks, meat, and cheese, cannot be composted. So if you got like at least 6 of them right, let me see a thumbs up. Did anyone get at least 6 right? Oh, I'm seeing lots of thumbs up. Good, you guys are compost experts. All right, everyone, so that is the end of our class today. I hope you guys had a lot of fun. Oh, someone said they got all of them right. Oh my gosh. Someone said almost all. Amazing. You guys are so smart. So that is the end of our class today. So what I would love for you guys to do is make your compost at home. If you already have a compost, take a picture or video and upload it to Class Dojo. And then the one thing before anyone logs off, and I meant to say this at the beginning, we have a new code for Class Dojo. And so I'm going to type it into the chat. It's YCZLMS. YCZLMS. But we'll see you guys on Monday then. Have a wonderful long weekend.